The Business Oddcast.
And welcome to what is our sixth Business Oddcast. I'm your host, Stuart Morrison, and this is the fabulous.
Hannah Logan, fabulous as ever, or trying to be.
No, we both were born awesome and we've just been getting better ever since.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
it.
into that.
And if you don't come out the other end with a few battle scars, what was the point? You know?
Yeah.
So, how's your week been? I always start with that, but I find it very, very accommodating and it allows you to go wherever you want. So, what you've been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I've been up to a mixture of productivity, but I'll be honest and say that's been like small this week so far,
Progress is progress.
which sucks, but I've been in that kind of distracted, not quite in it mode. And when I'm in that, I get easily, I go to put a pair of socks on before I know it, I'm trying on all my shoes randomly. Or like, yeah, it's just bizarre, isn't it? Like, oh, I need socks before I start work. 2 hours later, I'm trying on high heels for some weird reason, for no reason at all, actually. So yeah, there's been kind of productivity in the wrong areas. I've also, unfortunately, kind of been hitting myself with a stick about the lack of productivity in all areas. So yeah, it's been a mixture of like me telling myself to do more and then me not really doing that much. So
The biggest regret that old people have on their deathbeds. This has been said over and over again.
mm,
Biggest regret is they worked so much. So, so you got distracted wearing sparkly heels. When you're enjoying yourself, you can only spend your life working so much. There's only so much fuel in the tank. So,
yeah, yes.
you're saving yourself. You're preventing, which tees us up incredibly amazingly.
Oh, I love it. It's like a game of volleyball.
Tease us up for this week's topic.
Yes, this week's topic, very appropriate today, burnout, overwhelm, and recovery. So we're going to look at I think that's very common for all of our viewers, no doubt, and certainly Stuart and myself. We're going to look at burnout and overwhelm as a neurodiverse business owner, and also the recovery, and probably suggest some ideas for recovery,
Okay,
share our
let's
own experiences.
before we go deep into it and we look at all of this. I think it's useful to outline what these terms are for people who may be on the journey of self-discovery. Looking in the
Yeah.
mirror for me. That what is burnout? What is overwhelm? And obviously recovery is the opposite of that, but that looks different for different people. So let's cover with the first part of that, burnout and overwhelm. What are burnout and overwhelm, Hannah?
I always struggle with the kind of real definition of them, but
Well,
I
give me
guess
give me
that,
your thoughts on what you experience as burnout and overwhelm, because those things are kind of relative as well. So
yeah, I think they're relative and they're also kind of playing a game with each other, aren't they? So they're in cahoots to
yeah,
get to bring us down.
damn you.
Um, for me, burnout, I often don't see burnout, and that's something I need to, I don't see it till it's on me. And I think I need to recognize those signs better because it would make my life a bit easier. Um, I guess the burnout for me is kind of overloading myself with stuff and not really understanding the implications of that until I suddenly have run out of spoons completely and go into, in my way, I kind of tend to either completely shut down or just go into a massive overwhelm and just have a massive meltdown, which is never pretty,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
um, And the burnout for me goes in cycles, which I'm sure it does for everybody. But there are recognizable cycles, but mine are not always exactly the same. I'd like it to be an exact science so I could recognize it and prevent it. Whereas sometimes I'm like, oh, here we are again. Now it's too late because I'm shouting at everybody, crying in the supermarket.
Oh, the crying in the supermarket.
Messy, really messy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you
So I,
see,
sorry.
no, I just that's quite interesting. The and I agree with you. For me, overwhelm is, I always say, if a pint is holding a pint, it's doing the absolute best it can. If you try and ask it to hold another half a pint, it's never going to happen. It's never going to work. And that's, for me, is the overwhelm, is by mishap or blind. I have a great optimism in my faith and ability to get shit done.
Yeah.
Way over and above my ability to get shit done. And quite often I'm trying to get a pint and a half in a pint pot, and it's required a lot of self-discipline to go, no, actually sitting on the sofa right now is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Especially when so I saw this the other day and I was like, damn straight. It said rest is necessary to put in the work. Rest is not a reward for putting in the work.
Yeah.
And just, yes, 1,000 times yes, because that's where the overwhelm comes. It's not giving yourself the rest. And that then leads to, on a long enough cycle for me, the burnout, the blown fuse, my brain just not like you're pulling the levers and there's like and they're random and your brain's misfiring and you're just, yeah. So that entire scenario is a well-worn path for myself. And in retrospect, looking at the context of my life through an autistic lens, I can now see how times where I was diagnosed as being depressed was just burnout, just absolute sheer 100%. I had no more fuel in the tank, no more spoons to give. So
Absolutely.
I get it. I totally understand it.
Absolutely that. And I think in a context, that's not even a word. I'm making up words now, Stuart.
Don't worry.
In the context of day-to-day life, burnout and overwhelm has a massive impact. But then when you add in that extra layer of business and the pressure that we put ourselves under through our own business, or God forbid we're actually employed, step away from PAYE. Don't do it. I think when you add in that extra layer of kind of business pressure and stuff, it's just, for me, other people even more so are relying me in a business context. They're relying on me to hit deadlines and produce the things I promised to produce and all of that stuff. And whilst I have got over the years very good at making sure that I'm not taking on oodles and oodles of projects, because I know my limits, or I know, I am very good now at spacing them out and working out what's realistic and what isn't. But if you add the burnout and overwhelm of life, if we, sorry, I'm not explaining it very well. If we didn't work, then we'd have a lot more opportunity to preempt those burnouts, like think, oh, I'm heading towards the rocks. I'm heading towards the rocks, go and rest. Whereas, like Titanic-esque, sometimes I just find myself on those rocks because I've kind of, work is pressuring, life is pressuring, work and life is pressuring. And
That's what I find with self-employment. It allows me to better judge my capacity before overwhelm, and that capacity changes, and knowing what you've got to give rather than being obligated to give more than you can afford to give. I find there is more opportunity in self-employment to do that than regular employment.
Absolutely that. I mean, I had a conversation with a new client, just a little project I'm doing on somebody's website the other day, and I decided, I know her very well and she's fabulous, and her husband is definitely spicy, so she gets it, which is magnificent. She's a perfect client, really. And I said to her, I said, I'll be very honest with you. I had a really overwhelmed week last week, so this week I'm playing catch up and I'm building my spoon collection. And I will try. I said, how urgent is this project? Because I'm a bit limited at the moment. And she said, just go with your own energy, Hannah. It's not urgent. She's amazing. She's not pressuring me. And literally perfect. So yeah, I found in that particular instance, because I know her well, it was actually really a really good idea, just to be really honest about that.
I think there's a lot of that in quite a few of my clients. A lot
Yeah.
of them phone me up and ask me to do stuff and go, in your own time, not a problem. And I recognize some of the traits, and you're like, yo, you get it. You kind of you understand that, you know, the world isn't going to stop tomorrow because your website didn't have a new button put on.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
conversely, so, you know, you still need it done in a relatively short scale of time. But I can judge my own. This, like last 2 weeks, in actual fact, there's been a personal project that I've been
Hmm.
on at for about 4 months, and it's just knocked the absolute stuffing out of me. And I have programmed this week to be purposely full of all of the things I enjoy that give me energy rather
Hmm.
than take energy from me. And I'm not sure you could do that as much. Well, I didn't know when I was employed any of this, but
No.
I try and judge it through that lens. And it's much harder to say to the business that employs you, oh, that entire week I can take off as holiday, great. And the week after as well. And then the week after, what I'd like to do is put in about 50% effort so that I sort of ran back into it. And imagine having that kind of conversation. But when I'm back, you'll get 200% out of me. No small talk, no chit chat.
Oh yeah, I'll work
I
through the
focus.
night. It's so, I mean, exactly that. What you're saying there, I completely agree with. One of the things that I love is that I can literally, when I do a lot of writing, you know, I do a lot of writing. Sometimes when I'm in the writing zone, I will just not, I mean, I'm not, you know, don't do this at home, kids, but I'm not eating, I'm not drinking, I'm just, I'm just churning like some kind of crazy typewriter, like, you know, like some kind of cartoon, churning out good quality content, banging it out. You know, I might work 5, 6, whatever it is, hours straight and churn out all the projects that I have planned probably for 2 weeks. But then I might have 4 days of just being like, you know, face pressed against the edge of the sofa, just like, oh, with a little battery light flashing. I'm just recharging. Don't don't come anywhere near me.
I said to you the other day, I said my phone was at 5%, my watch was at 5%, and I was at 5%.
Yes.
Luckily, the beer I was drinking was 5%. I was
I love
recharging my
that.
back. But I tell you, I was sat in the pub with my eyes shut, just gently nodding backwards and forward. I had my beats on, and I was just doing the finger thing, just doing the finger thing. I don't care, and a part of me was like, I don't care. At this point, what, wearing a loud jacket, rocking in the corner, listening to beats and doing that? Yeah, that's Stu. Don't care.
At least people will leave you alone.
Yeah, don't go over there. Why?
Through fear, if nothing
Nothing
else.
to you.
What's wrong
He's
with him?
into his music. But you see, that's also the point, is taking the
Mm,
necessary breaks, allowing
yeah.
yourself time, and acknowledging to yourself that you're not lazy. It's not
Yeah.
laziness. I have to remind myself, if I am not stood up on the go, I'm not being lazy. As the other day, I started work in my office. I came into my office about 10:30.
Mhm.
Um, and as I got off the sofa, I said to Gemma, "Oh, I'm going into the office. There was something I needed on my computer." I said, "I'm about to start work, 10:30." She goes, "Start work? You've been sat here texting people and updating people, and you said to me that you cleared down a couple of bills." And well, it's not really work, is it? Because my mind wasn't in, like,
In
in my
work
hyper
zone.
focus thing. I was just knocking out a few of the little kind of to-dos. And I think we also forget that, whether you're
Yeah.
spicy or not, that kind of cognitive load in the
Yeah.
background. Mums have it, that mum admin. You know, you kind of know
Yeah.
when the alarm bell goes
Consequences.
off of, like, has anybody checked the when was the last time we, you know,
No, yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking one thing that we really can do when we're self-employed is make sure that actually, or what I try and do a lot, make sure that I'm really managing. my time to maximize the really, really good productive time. So we've just kind of touched on that really, but that, I'd rather do 3 Hannah at her best efforts, Hannah, hours of work that's the best stuff, that's really efficient and doesn't drain me because I'm in the zone, so I'm not getting drained too badly. And sort of making the most of those moments, which do come along a lot. And then also recognizing those times when I force a piece of work and I'm not in the zone, the overwhelm is crazy. The it is literally, isn't it, like trying to push a car up a hill that hasn't got any petrol in it. And it just is brutal and overwhelming, the burnout that comes with that. And yet occasionally I forget. And occasionally I'm like, just push on through, Hannah. Have a couple of cans of Diet Coke and try and self-medicate myself. And actually all that happens is I'm just really twitchy and crying. So yeah, don't do that.
Look,
Don't
we're
ever
all
do.
adults, and we know we have our obligations and all of our both familial and work, whether that's self-employed or whatever.
Yeah,
So we're not just advocating that you lie under a blanket and do nothing,
no,
but there is there is a way that self-employment allows you to have more time to do the life admin. So
yeah,
like you don't get to the end of the work day burnt out from the
no,
work, then having to do an hour of family admin or, household chores
yeah,
on top. And also it allows for the time to do it, like you say, when you're most productive. And first thing in the morning between 5 and 7 o'clock is when I do all my learning.
yeah.
I watch the videos I want to watch, I read the articles, I deep dive into stuff, and there's no one around, and I know I can do it without being interrupted, so I'm not constantly like, one ear, is my name going to be called?
Mm.
I can literally tunnel in. So knowing that, know thyself, don't they say know thyself? Knowing that allows you to prioritize that. That is a
Yeah, yeah.
priority for me in the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, that's a huge benefit of being self-employed. And I think another one, which I really like, is being able to kind of create our own environment, our own working environment. As a self-employed person, I get to pick. I don't want to be in a bright office with loads of strip lights and noise. And actually, I can be tucked away in a room in my house in the quietness. Occasionally, there's a noise in the background or something. But, generally, I like a kind of dull light. I like to reduce my the unnecessary stimulation of my senses. Um, and I can do all that, but then another time I might get a bit lonely and then I go to a shared workspace that I can use and need people around me. So the benefit of that, or the point I'm trying to make, is I can be the boss of that. I can decide whether I want to be co-working in a busy environment for a couple of hours or whether I want to be shut away. Not in a cupboard. I was going to say in a cupboard. I don't work from a cupboard.
In the
I'm
cupboard.
like the elf from the shoemaker. I'm just in a cupboard, tapping away. But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can we can create that.
but you see, this is the point of
Mm,
this topic, is you're managing the overwhelm,
yeah,
because if you spend too long in that overwhelm, like an
yeah,
engine,
yeah,
too long in the red, it's gonna blow up, and
yeah,
that's burnout. Uh, I've experienced it, like I said, a few times, and at the worst, there was catatonia. There was just inertia. I would lie in bed, being
yeah,
unable to. I'd just be like, why is my brain empty? Just
yeah,
trying to even do simple tasks like the washing. It
yeah.
felt like a Herculean task to, find you haven't got the right the washing powders out, and the one that you like isn't stocked in the store down the road. You have to get in the car and drive to the supermarket.
Mm.
Oh my God, you've got to deal with the supermarket, and all of this goes through your head as you're lying there trying to go, why can't I just go around the corner and get that? And you just know that that will just add to that burnout, because you're then irritated by the clothes you put on because the smell's not right and it's a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you
Everything's
experienced the
itchy.
dreaded burnout?
I remember the first time I had a proper burnout. I didn't recognize it as that at all because it was a first for me. and I just was convinced I had flu, or I just was like, oh, I'm really ill, because it just hit me. But I didn't have a temperature, obviously, or anything like that. But I just felt, like you said, really, just my brain was completely empty and everything felt like too much. And I thought at the time, well, gosh, if I got depression or something, because I just needed to be in bed for a few days and I felt completely whacked. And actually, I now realize it was burnout. And yeah, I try and avoid that as much as possible because it's horrible, really difficult. Although much easier to manage now, I recognize it.
Yeah.
And I've got some strategies in place, which helps. I mean, have you got any good strategies to stop yourself falling off the cliff edge?
I've got some real tells.
Mm.
I get really clumsy. I've
Yes.
got more marks on my shins and cuts on my fingers than I usually have
Yeah.
from being a maker and a doer. Um, the world seems more angular.
Yeah.
Tastes are off. I'm much more sensitive to noise and smell and light. I'll be wearing my sunglasses all day,
Yeah.
no matter what the weather, because it's just like the visual power of having what effectively feels like two torches shone in your eyes all day, every day.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing that those things are indicators.
Mm.
When they happen now, I'm able to take stock and not ignore them, because I used to go at it with the attitude of this will pass, without stopping, without changing anything. This will pass. And we have had way too many household family events ruined because Stuart was burnt out. Like,
Mm.
and I don't mean like, big fallout, huge rows or whatever, but just mean being unable to participate in them. Yeah, Stu can't come. Why is that? Because I could literally just not face people. I just couldn't. I didn't have I
Yeah.
the brain was just not there. Just not there. Um, Christmas, where I'm supposed to be cooking Christmas meal, I cook Christmas meal, then just have to go to bed because that's I'm done for the day. Like,
Yeah.
done. Um, yeah, it's a. I've not had the deep months long burnout ever since my first one. And that's because I left employment.
Yeah.
And I say this without hyperbole. I'm not sure if I would have been here if I had returned to full-time employment.
Yeah.
And the pressure that came off me, and I've just been writing about this because we're going to be
Yeah.
putting out some guides of strategies, tips, things that we've found helped us. They might help you, they might not. Everybody's different, but they might give you a clue as to where to get started. And one of the things that really I am really conscious of is preserving my energy. So if I get through the day and at 3 o'clock, let's say 3 o'clock rolls around, I'm not really much of a clock watcher. I'm more of an energy watcher. And if
Yeah.
my mind starts to wander and I flick off to YouTube, I'll just take a 5 minute break and watch YouTube. And that 5 minute break becomes a 10 minute break, I'm like, you're done for the day. Your brain is telling you that it needs not to go back to that task. It's quite happy now. Now that might seem like you're abdicating responsibility for the work, but it's like I've got processes in place that if a customer even phoned me and said, our website's down, can you get it back up? I could pass that along to someone. Yes, it costs me money, but it allows me to go and lie down yesterday I did the minimum input all day, minimum input, and I did it mostly from the sofa. And I'm not sure if, like I said, you've phoned, you say to a boss, I want the week off. Well, we've got a huge product launch. You've got to be in the office on the Monday morning because we've got a massive meeting. Yeah, participation isn't voluntary. You got to be there. Now, when you're self-employed, those things rarely turn up. I know there are meetings, and I've agreed to meetings in the future, not knowing what my energy levels will be, but I know what those are and can manage my energy levels accordingly up in the run up to them. And I find that business, the business of business can sometimes just steamroller the person. Yeah. So in conclusion, I kind of avoid the burnout now because I recognize the overwhelm. And this is the other thing as well. The two other sort of you really have to analyze your own behavior and think, oh, I do that because of that. And that I thought was just me, but that's a thing for the tism or the whatever. I build in fire breaks. These are like this week is a fire break. I knew that the party we had on Saturday, in the lead up to it, I would give my all to make it the best thing for our guests. Every year we try and improve both our property and our guest experience, and just have a party that people go, oh my God, this is a brilliant party. And I know that it's putting on an event effectively. And I know what that does to me because I've put on so many different events over the years. And I know that I've got to give myself the just time off, time for my brain to just like process what I've just been through. And I still haven't processed all the changes I've made in the garden. I still am looking at it going, wow, that looks really good. So having the ability to do that helps me manage the overwhelm before it gets to the burnout. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people who are not diagnosed who are in burnout, and there are more and more of that happening, and they call it a mental health crisis. I think it's also happening with the neurotypicals. I mean, burnout isn't just a spectrum thing. Burnout is a genuine thing. And if you spend too long in the red, you will burn out. Just too much cognitive load, too much stress, they call it. Whatever. It can happen to anyone. It's just that the threshold for it is a lot lower when you're on the spectrum. And it fractures along different lines. Yeah. So yeah, no, those are my tips, those are my thoughts. Have you got any tips, any thoughts, any hints that you can share?
Okay, timps.
Timps or hits, whatever.
I've got all of those. I'm not so good at noticing the signs yet, and I think I'm perfecting it. So, kind of tips from me, things I've learned recently that are definitely helping. I've done a real overhaul of the way that I kind of work, like you were touching on too, really. I do now allow more time. Like, I love what your analogy of a fire break. That's kind of what I'm building into my day to day. I have to battle, unfortunately, quite a lot with the hyperfocus, because if I get it into my brain, right, this week's a networking week, then I'm like back to back blocking people in like I'm some kind of machine churning through meetings. And after about 3 days, I am like dead behind the eyes and regretting my choices and letting people down, having to cancel them. So I often have a conversation in my brain where I'm like, no, hyperfocus mode. You're not my friend this week. You need to back off. I use a lot of reminders, so I block in work on my calendar on my phone, but it's all movable. So, I have an idea of what I want to achieve in a day, but I'm very kind to myself and I can move that on to tomorrow or whenever later on in the week if I need to. So they are not set in concrete, and I'm very kind with myself on that. I don't beat myself up. There was a time where I'd have beaten myself up for not ticking that to-do list on the right day. But so yeah, I guess using tools, electronic kind of tools, reminders, calendars, stuff like that.
I have what I call Free Play Friday.
Nice.
And it means that I don't put any work in the diary. We had, when we had the business, the Mr. Metric business, we had a policy where we just would not have a website launch on a Friday. I know there are many developers that do that. Too many problems.
Yeah,
Too many
yeah,
things can go wrong. You've then got the weekend, and of course
yeah,
you're paying people, so you're either paying them a lot more or they've got to wait until Monday.
yeah,
So we would never launch a website on a Friday. And that then led to working from home Fridays, which then led to, if we're done for the week, I'm not forcing people to come in just to answer emails.
yeah.
But if I needed them, they would be there for me as a resource. And I started getting more out of people in the 4 days they were in the office.
It makes so much more sense, doesn't it, though? I think if you can do that, I used to do the same, but with a Monday, and Monday would be, but it wasn't a kind of really restful day because what I do is cram in all the other life stuff like dentist and
Yeah.
all the crud, you know, car MOT and so actually, yeah, in the end, I started it off as being almost like a down day, a sort of extension of my weekend to regroup and kind of recharge. And then quite quickly, I started cramming it full of all the other crud in my life that didn't fall into the work bracket. So actually, yeah, now Mondays are not, they're not, well, now I work on them as well. So yeah, I guess there you go. That a part of my ADHD means that I put a lot of this stuff in place and then forget that I did it or move it out of place, sabotage it.
But you see, you can get, if if you recognize that, you can get back to it. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, it's one of those things. And sometimes you have to accept that in the short term, you will be in overwhelm for a bit.
yeah,
You will be slightly out of your depth whilst either the project progresses to a point where you can put it back down and it
yeah,
sort of self-sustains, or the customer's need does take a priority. But you see, that again is like, okay, I can, it mentally for me, it's like I can sustain this for 2 weeks.
yeah,
Happy to sustain this for 2 weeks or 2 months. You know, I know that I can get to the end of this. I just take a more methodical approach and reduce all of the extra external stuff. So, you know, not staying up late and not going to the friend's barbecue, and you make the trade-off. You're like,
yeah,
well, that's the trade-off for me being able to do this stuff in the timescale they want and them giving me the money. But that then means that for the next 2 months,
mm.
I can do what the fuck I like. You know, if more
Yeah,
work comes in, I will take it on a, whether I've got the energy or the desire
yeah,
for it, and timescale and blah, blah, blah. So for me, I think that being self-employed has massively returned on quality of life, massively, in
yeah,
a way that I think if I had a, I don't want to say high pressure, high power job, but a job that paid like 100 grand a year,
yeah,
but I had to get on a train, go up to London, it would break me. I would
yeah,
be a quivering jelly under my desk within months. And I think it's different for different people, but I'm also not as young as I was. And I think there's a lot of very young neurodiverse
mm.
or younger neurodiverse people who are making up for their burnout by burning out their youthfulness, and
Yeah,
using
yeah,
youthful energy to make up the energy deficit that they have going on in their lives. Much like a
yeah,
bank account, you can run into the overdraft for quite a long time before the bank
yeah.
suddenly goes, "Do you know what? You're bankrupt." And it is, that's what it is. It's energy bankruptcy.
Yeah,
You bankrupt your ability to recover almost. So you
yeah,
have to take double the length of time and relaxation to even get back to the point. You know, like when a battery runs out on your phone, when you
mm.
plug it in, it doesn't want to switch on immediately, does it? It wants to think about
No.
it for a little while. Yeah.
You've touched on something really, really important for me, really, because I have noticed as I've got older, along with many other things, my energy is even less. And I think you're right. When I was working up in London, when I was kind of finished uni and stuff, I had so much energy. And although I was recognizing I was going into, I recognize now I'm late diagnosed, obviously. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was in this cycle of kind of bit of a meltdown, get back up, this kind of slightly toxic energy cycle. But actually, I notice so much more as I'm older and I'm wiser, thank goodness. So I am managing my energy better. But as I'm older and the energy in general, regardless of whether you're neurodiverse or not, is lessening, even if we're all trying to fight it by running and trying to be fit and stuff, it is still less. Like you said, the battery, I think as we get older, the batteries are just slower to recharge and they don't hold their energy as long. And,
Yeah, that's exactly it. I used to be able to do 10 hours in the garden, like proper,
Yeah.
putting a proper shift in. 6 hours, maybe.
Making a cup of
10.
tea exhausts me. I have to go and sit down for a bit.
You need a cup of tea to get over the cup of tea.
Yes. It's just, oh gosh, it's funny, isn't it? Well, it's
But
not
that,
funny.
well, that
Yeah,
that brings us neatly, actually. So we've
yeah,
discussed the burnout. We've given some examples. We've shared some
yeah.
tips. Recovery. What does recovery look like? How does this recovery begin? How do we get back on the horse and hopefully understand a little more about what leads to the burnout and the overwhelm? What tips have you got for the recovery cycle? What's your recovery like?
So my recovery is very much kind of go into turn all the noise down, turn all the lights down, go into my room with my noise cancelling headphones. It depends how big the burnout was. My burnout is probably a bit more dramatic by the sounds of it than yours. My burnout starts with a massive verbal meltdown where I am quite mean to anybody in my household. And unfortunately, my husband is usually the one in the room. It's not, it's not really abuse, but it's definitely a kind of a big princess meltdown that gets lots of tears and then I end up retreating like a little dragon, quite like a little angry dragon, into my cave with my noise cancelling headphones. Um, and I just kind of prioritize that kind of rest, removal of anything that feels really demanding on me. So I kind of offload stuff. If I've got to take one of the kids somewhere, in my shouting bit, I'll add, "Can you take so and so to the dentist?"
Oh, and by the way,
By
you're
the way,
in the
you need to
car
get some
job.
food.
Yeah.
And then what I'll do, and this is always the process that I go through really, I sort of reduce the stimulation after I've been mean to everybody. I go and take myself into my little cave. I make sure that I've eaten something because often I've forgotten to eat something that blows everything up. Low blood sugar and not looking after myself properly is huge. Make sure I've drunk something, and then I try and get into kindness mode, like self-kindness. I don't want to sound like, I'm being a bit woo-woo, but I do. I start to sort of explain to myself it's okay to have this. I understand why I've done this, and actually I've definitely pushed myself a bit too hard, and I'm not going to beat myself up over that, but it's kind of, yeah, not punishing myself, but just being gentle really, and being more self-aware, I suppose, in the hope that it will prevent it happening again anytime soon. Um,
Yeah, my when my cope is broke, as I think of it, my ability to deal with anything means that I have to like it was at the party. I just took myself to bed, and it was because I literally ran out of all of the spoons to have conversations. To consume any more alcohol would have been folly, absolute folly. Wasn't going to help anything. It was just going to make me even worse. But I started talking in the conversation, and it was literally I couldn't string of words together. My brain stopped, and it wasn't drunken slurring words. It was like I was having a conversation. My brain just went no. It's like it just got all the tiles on the Scrabble board and went. Eh. I was just literally stood up. I'm going to bed, and off I went, and that was it. Um, and it's knowing that, it's recognizing that, and being kind to yourself, like you say. The well, of course, this was bound to happen but I'm just a human. I do make mistakes. I don't, there isn't a
Yeah.
mental gauge going, you have this many spoons and this is your tank. It's
No.
all a bit of a kind of juggling act.
Yeah, it is. It's funny what you said about slurring your words because actually, as you know, I don't drink, but I notice, and I haven't drunk for quite a few years, but people used to say if I went to a party and I was talking to everybody, I'd start to slur my words when the energy had got so depleted, but I wasn't quite ready enough to go home. And people would say, "Oh, you're a bit drunk," and I'd say, "No, not at all." And I wouldn't even really notice it, but actually, yeah, my mouth was just not working as well as it needed to in the brain and everything like that. So it physically does. Yeah, it physically kind of all those physical signs. Sorry, bit of a tangent.
No, absolutely vital tangents. I love a tangent. I
I
love
love
a
a
good
tangent.
side story or a side quest. So the recovery is a mental, but it's also a physical recovery. I find. Like again, you're not playing a game where if anyone's played an adventure game and you've got a character, you have different health bars. You know, you
Yeah.
can have overall health, you can have spiritual health, and
Mm.
but it's like one of your health bars is flashing and in the red.
Yeah.
The others are coping, but if you let a second one go into the red, oh, you're in deep doo doo.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so the recovery has to be almost the exact opposite, like you say, you know, lessening the inputs and reducing the stimulus
Yeah.
and allowing yourself to get more regulated. Sleep is a big one for me. I knew that I was going to crash this week. I just knew I was going to crash.
Mm.
And but last week there was a day where I slept 12 hours straight through, bang. You know, that's
That's
completely
amazing.
unheard of. I went to bed at something like 9:30, and I got up at 9:30. You know, peeled my face off the pillow. Like, is this Earth?
Creases all in your cheeks.
Just like, and you stumble around like you're half cut, and your brain sort of takes a while to boot up, and you kind of the cursor's blinking. Coffee required or
Your
some.
eyes are twitchy.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the recovery doesn't have to be huge. I mean, if the burnout is deep and long lasting, then yes,
Yeah.
you know, put yourself in full blankie, weighted blanket,
Yeah.
you know, marshmallows and hot chocolate on the sofa. That's your
Yeah.
thing, you know, tofu and dips. If not, I don't know, you know, but the point is, do what you need to do to reset and recover. And I also think that so I gave this piece of advice to one of the channels that I follow.
Mm.
And I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'll put a link to it down there. We exchanged a couple of messages backwards and forwards,
Yeah.
and he said he wouldn't mind being a guest. And I said,
Right.
well, you know, let's get up and running before that. So, um, but it was the idea that being newly diagnosed, how long does it take to get used to the idea of, you know, revealing this to yourself and agreeing with it yourself and going,
Yeah.
actually, I'm, you know, it can be a real shock to people. I've lived so long as me that when they went, you're autistic, I was like, what does that mean? Oh, that's the explanation for why all of this. Oh, great. At least I've got a word
Reason.
now. I've got a thing. I can just say to people, that's what I am. Go and do your own research. Anyway, we home educated our children. So we were told this very early on was you have to deprogram from the
Mm.
school. You
Yeah.
have to go through a period. Your child has to, and the family have to go through an unlearning school.
Mm.
And the rule of thumb that was given was 1 month for every year they were in school.
Gosh.
But you think about it, it I was masked to myself for 56 years. You know, it's going to take 56 months,
Mm.
you know, 5 or 6 years for me to get my head around all of this and all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
any progress I'm making is good progress, but it's maybe not the final package. So lighten up on yourself. That's the
Yeah.
other thing about the overwhelm is the self-talk. That kind of you can why are you failing at this, because you know how to do this, and that harsh tone. I thought I had one of the harshest tones of any inner voice. When I found out about tone, and people have some people have a really nice inner voice.
Oh, really? I don't have her.
I've got several, and most of them are telling me that I've done something wrong. You've got several voices in your head, Stuart.
Hello, hello, can you come in?
Exactly. But you know what I mean? The tone that you take with yourself, I can be, sometimes I have to respond like, you would not say that to somebody else. You would use a completely, you'd be way more forgiving of somebody else. If your kids are you know, messed up or done something wrong, if that minor, you'd be like, don't worry about it. With
Yeah,
yourself, you're like, how dare you screw up? What?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's unlearning that as well that can be that's what takes the time, is to unlearn these reflex behaviors that you've put in place many times. You don't understand even why they're there. Why have I got this sergeant major voice in my head? Where's that come from? It's partially my mum, partially my dad, partially my grandparents. You know, it's that received kind of, you will behave like this and you will do this, and you know.
and society, right?
Yeah.
Just, I think it's, I won't go off on a massive soapbox about like hidden illnesses and hidden things, but it's, you know, we have society. If you break your leg, everyone's like, oh yeah, you can lie on your sofa for 2 weeks, recover well, you know. Whereas if you just say, I'm completely exhausted or I'm completely overwhelmed, suddenly you're a bit of a lunatic or you're a bit lazy or you're not trying hard enough. And I think maybe we absorb, well, not maybe, we definitely absorb those thoughts, don't we? Or maybe if I was better, I wouldn't have a overwhelmed meltdown, or if I was, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's quite hard. It's quite hard to sort of change that, like you said, with the voices. I had a meeting with a lady the other day, and she had I won't say what the name because it will out her if she ever comes on here or if she's watching this at some point. But she was telling me, and she said a woman's name. She said, "Oh, so and so weren't like that though." And I said, "Who?" And she was like, "Oh, that's the person in my head that like kind of has an opinion on stuff that isn't very like me." And I was like, "That's magnificent." And she was, because we were talking about her website, and I said, you know, if you want, I'll do a bit of an audit of it. And she was like, well, go easy because this other name
Penelope.
will get, yeah, let's say Penelope. Penelope's a bit of a bitch. And I was like, but you're so calm and quiet. And she said, yeah, but Penelope's in there and she will tell you how it is. And I was like,
That's
wow,
it.
actually, that's kind of cool. And she said Penelope is harsh on her. And I said, well, then why can't we work on Penelope? You know, why can't you think of making that Penelope a kinder? And yeah, she was literally talking about what we're talking about, that kind of inner critic. Or we have a choice whether it isn't an inner critic, but actually maybe an inner cheerleader or a kindness.
Whatever you do, don't suggest to her to get a ventriloquist puppet of Penelope.
It was slightly alarming when she started talking because she kept looking at Penelope.
Penelope, no, hold on, Jesus. I love her
like,
already.
okay.
She's great. I want to have
She
a conversation with Penelope. I want Penelope to meet the sergeant. Maybe they'll start haranguing each other and I can get a break.
But she was acting it out like, shut up, Penelope. Like, it's kind of weird.
Love her.
I thought it was reassuring to me that I wasn't quite there at that stage yet.
And what a wonderful thing for her to be that open with you.
Yeah, really.
Must have trusted you, must have
Yeah,
come
yeah,
open-hearted to the conversation. So that's good.
yeah.
Right.
No,
Well, I think we've covered the topic. I think we've looked at it. This is one we will return to, I'm sure.
yeah.
I'm sure if people have got comments, thoughts, questions, you know, stick them in the comments, write to us. Was it hosts at businessoddcast.com?
Yep.
We'd love to hear from you. Sign up as well. Go to businessoddcast.com, sign up on the website, mail list. We guarantee you we will never sell our mailing list. We will never send you, oh, buy socks because we've done a brand deal. That's not where we're coming from
Socks.
at
No,
all.
we will never do that.
Buy socks, just generally. We will send you updates about Oddcast stuff. We've got a lot planned. We've thought about this quite intensely. Where Hannah and I have been looking at ways to support our community, and I think sharing a lot of these hints and tips, thoughts, approaches, even just like I've thought about it like this. How do you think about this? Even like, you know, just as you've spoken about this woman with a harsh inner critic, you've now spoken to somebody else with that, and if somebody else is out there thinking, oh, I must be a bit mad because I've got this voice in my head, you're not. You're perfectly normal. I use the word normal in inverted commas, and for the purposes of this means sane.
You're not alone. You may not be normal, but you're not alone.
Yes, there you go. You found your people. You found your people.
You're normal amongst us.
I've got some homework. And everybody can do this. All right. Your homework this week is to do one thing which helps with the overwhelm or helps with the recovery. Put your feet up. Have a gin and tonic at 3 p.m. because it's Thursday. Go to a film that you want to see that the rest of the family don't on your own. I'm not saying I've done all these things, but I've done all these things. Insert whatever tiny little pleasure. Go and buy a Lego kit. Make a Lego kit. Don't wait and put off doing the nice stuff, because there will always be more work, and you're never going to get on your deathbed and go, do you know what, one more day in the office, please.
Just one more spreadsheet, please.
One more spreadsheet.
Up the morphine. I've just got one more email to send.
I've just realised where the error was on that particular website. If you go into the config, bring me the laptop.
That will literally be me.
Shut up, Penelope. Got Penelope and the sergeant now. You know, what am I going to do? Right. Thank you for listening. Thank you, if you have been, for watching. And please do like, subscribe, and share this with as many of the odd, weird, and lovely people that this podcast is for. Because we want to help, and suggestions, feedback. If you want to be a guest, hosts at businessoddcast.com. We will see you next week. And in the meantime, do your homework, put your feet up, relax. You got this.
You've got it. Step away from PAYE. Don't do it.